Make your picks. Playoffs get underway this week, and I give you a complete breakdown of all three Michigan high school hockey divisions, including 72 teams with a legitimate or outside shot at winning a regional championship, plus Final Four predictions, and yes, the only three teams in the state who get to end their 25-26 seasons with a W. Hit the subscribe button on YouTube and let's talk some hockey. Now, I dropped my two-division tiered playoff format on last week's episode and got a ton of feedback on that. And I appreciate all those that reached out on social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Good discussions on social media. A lot of disagreements, but I see it as healthy debates. And hopefully no one took any exchanges too personally. I know I didn't. It's all good conversations there. A couple things I did want to address here on the pod, though, just because I saw quite a bit of it, was the public-private debate, splitting the divisions based on public schools and private schools. I hate it. It's dumb, in my opinion. It's the ultimate, I'm taking my ball and I'm going home type of move, right? Just because a public school struggles to beat a private school at Plymouth in the Final Four doesn't mean they can't beat them at all. There's tons of instances every season, but just this season alone, take your top 5 private schools in the state right now. CC, St. Mary's, Powers, Cranbrook, RGR. Hell, you can throw in Liggett in the mix there as well. Rice, U of D, all of them, with the exception of CC, have multiple losses to public schools this season alone. So clearly public schools can compete. Why does that change at the state level? Well, that's a different story, and it's got nothing to do with recruiting either. To me, that's a lot more on the playoff matchups that get drawn at those stages of the tournaments. What teams make it there and what teams don't. A Heartland CC matchup at Plymouth would have been an awful lot more interesting had it not happened at the regional level. Same thing with Howell and CC this year. So I think it's the timing and the stage that a lot of those matchups happen on. Private schools recruit themselves too. Let me finish up my thought on that real quick. The coaches don't need to be out there scouting 8th grade hockey games. In fact, they're not. Are there one-off instances here and there? Maybe, potentially. But to think Brandon Kalnicki is out there binge watching 8th grade hockey games in the Metro Detroit area, I just think you're crazy. It doesn't happen. Generally speaking, safe to say the majority of your AAA players come from families with money. Also, generally speaking, I think it's safe to say the majority of your private school students come from families with money as well. It's the same demographic. It's the same target audience there. They may very well recruit for basketball or football or some other sports in the MHSAA umbrella. But hockey, like I said, it recruits itself, being the same demographic, the same target audience. Do you know how many AAA kids go to a U of D or a CC and don't play for the high school team? A lot. So it's really not what outsiders think it is when it comes to, oh, they recruit and we can't type of thing. And to say a Heartland or Howell can't compete with a Rice or Powers or Gabriel Richard is ridiculous. Now, CC, that's an entirely different animal. And I've said this for a long time now. We don't have a private school problem. We have a CC problem. Those are two different issues. And by that CC problem, like I've said in the past, it's just they're too good. They're too good, and it's almost impossible for the rest of us to close that gap when there are multiple varsity teams, multiple JV teams, all under that one umbrella and things like that, and pulling kids from as far as they do. That's a tough nugget for anyone in the state to keep pace with. So a public-private split too. The other thing, there's like 15 private school programs in the state at this point, standalone programs. That's not even enough for a state playoff. And what do you do with the other 108 public school programs? Cram them all into one division? I don't know the logistics on that either. So changing to a public-private split just means Heartland, Howell, Brighton now take turns winning a public state title, and CC wins the private state title. It doesn't necessarily fix anything. It just rearranges the deck chairs a little bit. So anyways, okay. I dropped a blog with brackets and picks for all three divisions on Sunday before games got underway. I know there was a couple puck drops last night in playoff action, so I needed to go on the record and make official picks before Jenison and Grand Haven squared off yesterday. We'll get to that region in a bit, but if you caught the blog already, we'll be diving into all of those picks. The link is in the description below, and you're welcome to follow along as well. If you didn't see the blog, obviously you can check out all these picks and more analysis, like I said, at pdspicks.com. We're going to open things up in Division 1. Let me split screen here too. Region 1, Forest Hill Central is the top seed, opposite Rockford here in this Grand Rapids region. Games go down at Griff's Ice House. Right out of the gate, I am taking this 5/4 matchup here in the first round between Traverse City West and Forest Hills Northeastern. Titans are just 10-16 on the season, but enter playoffs winning 3 of their last 4. And I also think it's worth noting 11 of those 16 losses are by 2 goals or fewer. They're a competitive bunch, and they've hung around and been in a lot of games. And I think not only get the win over the higher seeded Forest Hills Northeastern, but also put a legit scare into the top seeded Rangers in the regional semifinal. I'm pretty confident we get the 1 versus 2 matchup in the regional final and chalk prevails. But look, like, Rockford's made a real strong case this season as a top team in West Michigan. I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if they claim their first wooden mitten in 5 years. It'd be a great accomplishment for a program having a stellar season, obviously. Ultimately, though, I'm giving the edge to Ben Milak and the Rangers, winners of 4 in a row and 6 of their last 7 coming into the playoffs. So, we're good here. Okay, let me take a minute. I'll take a drink. Okay. All right, we'll move on to the other half of this quarter in Kalamazoo. And I wrote on social media, I expect chaos to unfold. If Cap City does, in fact, get upset in the regional semifinal, I'm not so sure it'd even be an upset, technically, considering Eastside has beaten the Caps not once but twice already this season. Narrowly avoided a bit of an upset of their own as Kalamazoo took them down to the wire last night in a playoff game. At one point led 3-0 before Eastside was able to dig themselves out of a hole there in the third period, scored a late third period goal to make it 5-4 and saved their season to get this matchup here in the regional semifinal. Caps could go to the Final Four. Don't get me wrong. They could also be eliminated in the first game. It's that volatile of a bracket here, this part of Division 1. I am taking Jackson, which would be the program's first regional title in 11 years. But I'm not completely writing off KU on the other half of this equation either, and Brady Penny. I could get every pick in this region right, and I could just as easily get every pick wrong here too. This is one of the more unstable brackets in the entire postseason, regardless of division. Should the Caps trudge on, I do think they stand the best chance at competing with a Forest Hill Central out of Region 1, or Rockford potentially too. Just considering their style of play and strong goaltending, I'm not nearly as confident if it's Eastside or Jackson drawing that quarterfinal matchup there, though. We'll move on to Region 3. Everyone wants the Howell CC matchup in the quarterfinals, and I do too. I'll admit that. But I'm telling you, man, Heartland has other ideas. After all, the Eagles are the only ones this season to actually beat the Shamrocks and hung in there not once but twice in a pair of regular season games with the Highlanders as well. If I'm Luke Storm and Chad Patilla for Howell, this matchup scares me way more than the quarterfinal game with CC does. Whatever happens at Dordt Federal Event Center on February 28th between CC and Howell, whatever happens, happens. But if you don't even get to the quarterfinal matchup because your cross-county rival knocks you off prematurely, man, that's a tougher pill to swallow, in my opinion. But nonetheless, two great games in this quarter of the bracket. Legitimately, three of your top four teams in the entire state, regardless of division. And only one of them will go on to Plymouth. It's criminal. Terrible, terrible, terrible. Okay, other half of this quarter, we'll move on to Region 4. Gets a little more interesting with how well Clarkston has been playing as of the last few weeks. 5 straight wins in 6 of their last 7 as well. Hopefully give the Wolves a bit more confidence after losing 11 of 12 at one point. They pull off an upset here over CC, and it would be legendary. I mean, Clarkston was mercied 8-0 by this same team a month ago. So to then turn around and pull off a win would be pretty incredible. I expected an inspired performance. Guys play hard, block a boatload of shots. Clarkston's fantastic at doing that. And at least make life a little difficult on a Ryan Dye or Sammy Masick. But ultimately, the Shamrocks should cruise through this region. And yes, I am taking them over Howell in that game of the year as well. So whether it's Maxon Sulla or Nick Kogut in net, they have a huge advantage at that position. They're disciplined and structured. Howell is going to struggle to even get chances with the amount of offensive threats they have. Did I say that right? Howell is going to struggle. They have offensive threats, but I think even so, they're still going to struggle to generate chances against this CC team that is so stout defensively and so strong in net. So for Storm and company to produce just 2 goals in this matchup, I think is asking a lot. And I think they're going to need 3 or 4, maybe even 5 goals to come away with a win in this matchup. So Shamrocks reign far from over here. I hate to break it to you, but Region 5, we'll move on. Troy United, what a fantastic story this season, by the way. 25-2-0, 20 in a row heading into the playoffs. They've beaten Utica Unified twice this season, 4-1 and 5-0. But I do like this Utica team. Like you've heard me talk about the pure goal scorer that is Alexander Gorgievsky in the past. He has 30 in 27 games this season. Lucas Beals also has 27. If Troy isn't careful, I'd give double U, not W, double U, an outside shot at a big upset here. And regardless of who wins in this regional final, I do worry about both Troy and Stony Creek here running into a bit of a buzzsaw coming out of the other half of the bracket, which we'll dive into now in Region 6. Eisenhower, you may be looking at a pair of mercies here against Anchor Bay and Chip Valley. Obviously not rooting for that by any stretch of the imagination. You hate to see anyone's seasons end that way, but you look at the field here, and Ike is far superior to the other teams in this bracket. I dropped a stat in the blog on pdspicks.com. Ike has outscored these regional final opponents by a combined 42-12 in 5 games this season against Anchor Bay, Chip Valley, and Romeo. And then, like I said, I'm even taking the Eagles to continue to roll through onto Plymouth, although an Ike-Troy matchup here would be particularly noteworthy because if not for Ike forfeiting their first 5 games of the season, this matchup would have otherwise featured the 2 teams in the state with the most wins in the regular season at 25 apiece. So for whatever that's worth, kind of an interesting storyline there should these 2 meet later on down the road. All right, we'll move into Region 7. I've gone back and forth a bunch of times between Northville and Brighton. These 2 teams skated to a 1-0 finish a few months back, where a young and inexperienced Bulldogs team pulled off a bit of an upset, I'd think. And now you fast forward 73 days later, and roles might be reversed now. I'd consider Brighton to be the favorite in this matchup, and Northville the role of the underdog. And I will say, you give Coach Ryan Ossenmacher a second chance against anyone in the same season they've already gone head-to-head with, I do expect you'll see the Mustangs' best punch in this game. And I do also think the winner of this game goes on to Plymouth as well. So there's a lot at stake in this particular regional final matchup. I'm taking the Bulldogs because as young as they are, and as much as they have struggled in the early parts of this season, this bunch looks completely different than the way they looked prior to Christmas. And that also speaks to why I think the roles have kind of reversed in this all KLAA regional final. Maybe a bit of a surprise, but Brighton gets back to the D1 Final Four for the 5th time in 6 years. Heard it here first, folks. Region number 8 wraps things up in Division 1 for us. Canton, your top seed in Region 8, wins over fellow Park schools, Plymouth and Salem, for the first time since 2021, earns them that top billing. But whether it's Plymouth or whether it's Salem in that regional final matchup, I like the quote-unquote underdog, with Salem here winning 3 of its last 5 and Plymouth winning 4 of its last 6 heading into the playoffs. The Rocks are young. It's another young team, but I am taking Carson Cunningham and Lucas Zielinski to get it done with a pair of Park upsets before running into, obviously, Brighton in the quarters. Very unique rivalry here, folks. If you're not familiar with the Park rivalry at this point between Canton, Salem, and Plymouth, it is arguably the most unique rivalry in the state. So yeah, taking the Rocks to kind of continue that reign of supremacy after last year's run, to follow it up with a second consecutive regional title would be a big win. Okay, on to Division 2. Grand Haven and Jenison played last night, and I believe this was a 1-goal game. I think went to overtime as well, with Grand Haven prevailing. So look at that, PD. We're one day into the playoffs, and I'm already 2 for 2 on my picks. I'll take that as a good start. Where am I at here? Again, I mentioned in the blog on pdspicks.com, the 2 Muskegon schools here, Mona Shores and Reeths Puffer, have found themselves in each other's playoff brackets on several occasions over the years, but the 2 haven't faced off in a regional championship game since 2013. So I think it's very fitting that the Lumbertown rivalry would have a wooden mitten on the line here, right? Okay, on the other side, Region 10, I'm going to fast forward through this a little bit here, but on the other side of the bracket, I've got Caledonia as the favorite, and I think most people would agree. I think most. On the heels of their OKC tournament championship. But the Scots have losses to Matawan and Byron Center and Granville this season already. The favorite, who's lost to every team they're going to have to face en route to a regional title. I'm picking them here, but I'm a lot more hesitant than I am confident for picking a quote-unquote favorite. To power rank these teams in order of who I think can win, I got Caledonia, Granville, Byron Center, Matawan, and then Hudsonville in that order. And a lot of that is based off of, I got some pushback on, oh, you're hating on Matawan, you're this, you're that. It's like, I think all of these are going to be close games. They're all going to be 1-goal games, overtime type games, where it comes down to the final shot. And strength of schedule comes into play a lot in that instance. Who's got home ice in those matchups plays a big role, and who can get the certain matchups they're looking for. They're getting their top line out there in certain looks. So it's not necessarily that I, am hating on Matawan or don't think they've got a chance, because they do. It's just that's how razor thin this regional is, and how very little separates 1 from 4. The home ice advantage matters. The last change matters. Strength of schedule, who's maybe played a bit tougher schedule and a little more battle tested to get to this point. So whoever it is, even if it's Madawan who comes out of this region, I like all four of those top teams right there more than anyone I'm seeing coming out of Region 9. So I think that speaks to just how good this region here is as well. We'll keep moving on here a little bit. Region 11, Givens Bowl, right? Goes to the playoffs. Father Chris Givens leads Traverse City Central into a third matchup this season against son Cam Givens, Alpena Wildcats. I talk about these two coaches so much when it comes to this matchup. It's just one of the coolest, another cool storyline in high school hockey. I don't mean to totally gloss over the fact that Alpena head coach Ben Henry. But look, like this is a sneaky, tough region for the top seed because Central and Alpena already split their season series at a game apiece, albeit I'd consider the Trojans' victory to be quite an upset given the two teams. But should Dow get a shot at that top seed in the regional? I actually think Caden Nemeth and the 15-win Chargers present a challenging matchup there as well. Wildcats are still the favorite, and it'd take a lot for me to pick Dow over Alpena. But this could very easily be a 4-2 type game that's close till the very end. So, yes, taking the favorite here. No, not taking them as confidently as I may be taking some of the other 1 seeds throughout the playoffs. And on the other half of this equation, Region 12, really not much to talk about here with Powers. They should cruise. And even in the quarterfinal matchup, whether it's a rematch with Alpena, who they beat 6-1 earlier this season, or it's Dow, who they beat 6-0 earlier, there ain't anybody at this stage of the tournament that's going to touch Powers, and maybe not anybody in the field, period. So taking the Chargers to cruise here comfortably, I felt, oh, I'm moving ahead here. I didn't have a note here for me to hit the slide. So I'll go to the next slide so you can see actually what I'm talking about here. I felt really good about RU winning this region in November, December, January. But now that we're into February, they've uncharacteristically lost to Stony Creek and to Troy United, as well as Clarkston and Stevenson. Those are very high-end programs as well, though. That's just in the last month, so I don't feel as good about my RU pick here as I did earlier in the season. St. Clair Shores, too, is a 20-win team. Strength of schedule hasn't been a total gauntlet, but even RU is just 1-1 this season against teams that I've got in my top 25. So this game is very much up for grabs, especially considering the Lakers' senior class. Caden Gersh, Gavin McKee, Zach Del Monte. You've heard me talk about these guys for a while now, too. This group wants to go out with some hardware, and they're going to lay it all on the line in this matchup. I'm picking RU, but I'd be lying if I said I didn't want to pick St. Clair Shores in this matchup. I want to, but I won't here. Maybe because I'm greedy and I just want to see RU and Stevenson go head-to-head for a third time in a calendar year. Region 14, we'll get to the other half here. I'm going to take Skyline in this 3-2 matchup here. A bit of an upset in the playoffs. The River Rats have beaten the Eagles twice already this season, and Skyline hasn't beaten their crosstown rival in over 2 years, despite getting 2 cracks at them each season. Look, I think Benny Billings comes through in net. I think Lucas DeYoung comes through offensively. I think Cooper Onstead and Isaiah Garcia do too. Eagles get the win over Huron. Ultimately, Stevenson, though, wins its 4th straight regional title here, but the first under first-year coach Jay Thompson, though. So a big milestone there for the program, too. That sets the stage, obviously, for a D2 quarterfinal rematch between Stevenson and RU. And like I said, this will be their 3rd meeting between these two programs who aren't in the same conference. They're not on each other's radars. They've just happened to draw each other 3 times, unplanned in the last calendar year, which is kind of crazy, like I said. But RU is hungry. They want this game so bad. I know they do. especially after, like I said, losing to these guys not once but twice, including last year when they fell to the Spartans, or fell to the Spartans despite having them on the ropes in overtime with a chance to punch their ticket to the D2 Final Four. So I just think Colin Strobel and company are just too much. And it's the Spartans, yet again, coming through for the third time in 365 days. Okay, Region 15. I know Dexter is the top seed and just clinched their second straight SEC White Championship last week, but I'd take both U of D and Rice over them in this regional final. I don't think they match up well, even if it is a reeling Brother Rice team that's won just 6 games all season, the fewest by the program in decades, as far back as I could go. They could still salvage this season with a trophy here in a region I actually think they can win. U of D beat them 2-0 and 6-4, but those are 2 close contests. And if Drake England has a big performance in net, I like U of D. It's a young group with a ton of potential, but anyone can run into a hot goalie. And England is good. He could absolutely steal one here. I'm taking the Cubs because I like the story. I like the trajectory and the promise this young group has and where they're heading in the future. If they win some hardware here, this could really propel them into next season where they really expect to return a boatload of guys. It'd be a big win for Dexter. Big if they could pull off a win against an MIHL team here. It's on home ice, and they'd have last change being the top seed and everything. So I suppose it's not that far out of the realm of possibility. It's just not a matchup I feel comfortable picking here. Plus, to run into Trenton coming out of Region 16, the Trojans behind Flint Powers should be seen as the most likely to reach the D2 Final Four. No reason why they shouldn't win their 9th straight regional title. And then from there, they'd face either Rice or U of D. They'd be heavy favorites in that matchup, and I'd say an even heavier favorite should it be Dexter in that spot opposite them in the quarterfinal. I just don't see how Donovan Durbin and this Trenton group, as much as they've struggled this season with a 14-12-1 record, giving up 10 goals to Heartland and St. Mary's respectively. Even so, I just don't see how the Trojans don't make it back to Plymouth as one of the 4 teams contending for a state title at USA Hockey Arena. Okay. I didn't really tease this as I got going here, but obviously you see the best odds to win on each one of these screens that I've been showing you, giving you a favorite, an underdog, and a long shot in most instances. Some tiles, if you've caught on, have 2 underdogs or 2 long shots to kind of give you a bit of an idea of how I see these brackets unfolding. So each one of these giving you 3 potential picks for the odds-on favorites to win a regional championship here in the next couple days. All right, we'll wrap things up with Division 3, Region 17. Look, people are mad about Heartland Howell CC all eliminating each other before the Final Four in D1, and rightfully so. But if you're mad about that, you should be outraged over this. Number 7, Houghton. Number 8, Marquette. Number 9, Calumet. Number 14, Escanaba. And number 25, Jeffers. 5 of the top 10 teams in Division 3, and only 1 of them move on to Plymouth. That is criminal. I had a brief conversation yesterday with Jimmy Young up in the UP, a radio guy there, and he says, Petey, it's like this every year. And he's not wrong. It just feels like this year in particular, maybe because Marquette moved back down to D3. I don't know, but this to me is more wrong than the D1 debacle. Like, they both are terrible situations, but if you're outraged over Heartland Howell CC, you better be fighting the good fight here for this UP quarterfinal, because it's just as much, if not more, of a logjam of top teams all bidding for one spot at the D3 Final Four table. I'm taking Houghton, but Hancock can absolutely pull off an upset here. All four teams in Region 17 here are capable of winning this thing. Hancock has really come on in the last few weeks, beat Houghton just 10 days ago, also beat Jeffers, and maybe should have beaten Calumet in at least one of their 3 regular season matchups. This region is anybody's. I'm giving Houghton the edge, just again being the favorite and all, but Jeffers over Calumet would be an upset. Leading scorer Nathan Londo has been out of the lineup since January 24th. I don't know his status for this game, and the Copper Kings are just 4-1 without him. I'm not so confident here, so I am taking Brogan Turner and the Jets with a slight 3-2 upset there. The other half of the UP, Region 18, Marquette just seems to have Escanaba's number. I love both of these teams. And so much has been leading up to this season for the Eskimos and the senior class, but something's got to give in a matchup between 2 of my personal favorites in the regional final. I'm not only taking Marquette, who's beat Escanaba 5-2 twice this season, taking them to beat them a 3rd time, and then pull off a bit of a stunner in the quarterfinals too to get to Plymouth for the first time since 2022. We'll keep plugging along here. We'll have more on the Final Four shortly here for all 3 divisions, and I'll give you my state championship picks for that in a moment as well. Region 19, Bay Reps, your regional champs? I aggressively say yes. This team just felt snake bitten earlier in the season. Bounces just weren't going their way. I think this young team has started to find a bit of a groove. Tyler Boynton Fisher, last time I checked, is still Tyler Boynton Fisher, one of the top goalies in the state with 6 shutouts this season. They are 7-2-1 in their last 10 since I saw them at the North-South Showcase. And I told you guys the chances were there. They just weren't quite finishing. Now they're starting to finish. They're competing. They win another championship here, and they ain't done yet. We'll take a look here at Region 20, the other half. And I think it's all Bay City. This is a super talented bunch. Maybe Coach Zach Schock's most talented team that he's had in his tenure, considering the pedigree of DeRussell, Richard, Johnston, Adair, and where they come from in their previous hockey stops. Would be huge for this group to win some hardware here. Would be the program's first regional title since 2017 and first under Coach Schock. It sets a really fun stylistic matchup here in the quarterfinal. Wolves should be the favorite to come out of this quarter and get to Plymouth. A high-powered, potent offense going up against a stingy defense with a stellar goalie. Something's got to give, right? I actually think the Reps have been the more consistent team. Not the better team, the more consistent team this season. And I think that shows up when the 2 teams take the ice. Give me the Reps to pull off a big upset in order to get back to Plymouth here. All right, Region 21 in Grand Rapids. It's gross, just gross. I feel like Grand Rapids Catholic Central, Lumen, and East, I think Christian too, these guys tend to always find each other come playoff time, and it's always messy. I never get it right. I used to pick against EGR, and then they kept going to state finals on me. Now I'm picking with EGR, and Catholic Central will go to the state final or something. I don't know. Whatever I pick, I'm never right when it comes to this group. Cougars should be seen as the favorite here, and if East wins, it'd certainly be an upset in this bracket. Pioneers are 4-4 in their last 8 and just lost to Jenison to end the regular season 10 days after they spanked them 6-0. So that's a rough one to wear there as you're heading into playoffs. I know what EGR is capable of, considering they have 4 wins over top 25 teams. They outshot GRCC 30-20 despite falling 2-1 in their regular season matchup. Pioneers are very capable of winning this regional. It just feels like a bit of an upset pick considering these two teams. Jacob Aaron was fantastic in that last matchup, and I expect him to be fantastic again. But East has great goaltending too. So it's really going to be who blinks first. And like I said, seems like there's a lot of people doubting the Pioneers, but I ain't ready to jump off this bandwagon just yet. So I'm going to say go East as the Pioneers head east for a big quarterfinal matchup here with Orchard Lake St. Mary's coming out of Region 22. I think it's all St. Mary's here. But I want to spend a minute on this 2 versus 3 matchup in the semis because I think this Huron Valley and South Lyon matchup has the potential to be the game of the tournament in the regional rounds. 2 weeks ago, when these two teams met, Tommy Colt scored an overtime goal to give the Titans a 6-5 win over Huron Valley. Where Huron Valley trailed 1-0. Huron Valley trailed 3-1, trailed 4-3, and trailed 5-4 before ultimately winning in overtime. South Lyon's Nathan Leege had a 4-point performance in defeat. I think this rematch delivers on drama a second time with talented offensive playmakers on both sides in mass as well. Killian Voorhees, Levi Weinberger, Austin Scanlon, Nathan Dell, Craig Borges, they're all on one team. And I'm not done yet. Nathan Leege, Braden Hillebrand, Jackson Curtis, Aiden Petrovic, Connor read the rosters off, for God's sakes, with how many playmakers and goal scorers there are on both of these teams. It is going to be crazy. RIP to the goaltenders, because this may break double digits in goals again. I'm taking South Lyon here, but it's close, and it's high scoring, and it's dramatic and exciting. I think this is going to be a great game leading into that regional final matchup with Orchard Lake St. Mary's. All right, Region 23. I don't want to say I've been doubting Liggett all season long. They're ranked 26th on My Hockey Rankings. They're 13th in MPR, and I think state champs had them in the top 20 on multiple occasions this season as well. But for me, though, they've consistently been on the outside looking in, and a lot of that was the strength of schedule. 47th in the state, a win over Clarkston, and then obviously a big stunner over Powers back in December, but also got mercied by CC. Lost 10-5 to Houghton. Lost to Carlson down the stretch as well. Carlson, an up-and-coming team, strong team, but needless to say, surprised to see Liggett fall to Carlson in that matchup. I just don't know that the Cranbrook matchup here at Wallace Ice Arena, and you're the away team, odds don't feel in their favor here. Plus, the Cranes aren't a group that's going to overlook you or put it on autopilot because it's a Thursday game in December. I feel pretty confident about the Cranes in this one. And then the other half of the equation, we get to Region 24. 4 months ago, I'd have told you Divine Child has no shot in this region with Gabriel Richard. But the Falcons have put together a dream season with some young guys who, by all accounts, may be overachieving. And it's reminiscent of Rochester United last year, too, and the run that they went on with a bunch of sophomores and juniors. Brody McNamara, Cole Boyke, Cullen McGowan. This group is led by a lot of underclassmen. 22 wins, unbeaten in their last 8. You couple that with RGR, who's been reeling as of late, and I just feel like the Pioneers may be ripe for the picking in an upset here. Regardless, I'm not sure either can keep up with the Cranes in the quarterfinal, and it's the Cranes going back-to-back-to-back trips to Plymouth. Okay, let me take a drink real quick. Yes, a lot of hype there around Divine Child. I'm still going to take a reeling Gabriel Richard to get the win. But if it's DC, I'm not surprised one bit. Not surprised one bit. All right, we'll go on to the Final Four. I got to adjust my screen here a little bit so you guys can get the full picture. There we go. Division One, assuming I have these matchups right, based on their MPR, and I think it's the MPR at the start of the playoffs, not the adjusted MPR as the playoffs unfold. So I think these would be the matchups with the 4 teams that I chose. D1 obviously would look like CC number 1 taking on number 4 Brighton, and then number 2 Eisenhower taking on number 3 Forest Hills Central. I believe this would mark the 10th time since 2013 that we will have seen Brighton and CC at Plymouth. And I don't like this matchup one bit for the Bulldogs. I don't think anyone at this stage of the tournament can stand in CC's way of a 7th consecutive state title. Should Connor Holmes and the Eagles make it to the title game, I think he can stand on his head and keep it close throughout the first period. Maybe it's got a 1-0 kind of feel to it, but eventually the Shamrocks' depth and diverse scoring threats are going to wear down the Eagles and run away with yet another Division I title. We'll move on here to Division II. I do think Caledonia could make it a compelling game against Powers because, again, Sam Hogue, he's playing like one of the best goalies in the state, and he too could slow down the Chargers' offense to keep it close for a while. I think the Scots may succeed where Ike won't against CC is the gap between Caledonia's second and third lines and Powers' depth guys isn't as significant as what you would see in the D1 final. They've got a chance, but not a good enough one. Powers, as expected here, since we all found out when Aiden Cook was coming back last summer, Powers wins your D2 title for the second year in a row here. But again, I think Hogue can keep it close. I think Caledonia is able to generate a little more offense. This could be like a 3-2 type game where Hogue is making 40-plus shots and Caledonia has an outside shot there. But maybe a bit uncomfortable in the process, but Powers nonetheless prevails in Division 2. Wrap things up here with Division 3 and a very familiar matchup in the state final, Cranbrook and Orchard Lake Part 2. 18 guys who played in the 2025 D3 state final could be back in action in the 2026 state final matchup between the Cranes and the Eaglets. 11 of them for Cranbrook, by the way, who was on the losing side of that time of last time. And they remember all too well that sick feeling in their stomachs as they sat in the locker room at USA Hockey Arena. Blake Tice blanked the Eaglets in their regular season matchup 3-0. I don't think that happens again, but I do think that illustrates how important or how meaningful that matchup was to the Cranes and all those returners maybe getting a little bit of revenge, getting a little bit back from that head-to-head matchup after falling in the state final a season ago. Now you set the table for a rematch with a title on the line, and I can see the Cranes being super motivated yet again. Again, I don't think Tice can shut out Orchard Lake a second time. The Orchard Lake offense is too good to snuff out 2 times in a row. They average 6.12 goals scored per game this season, which I believe is the most in the state this season. I don't think you can keep Charlie Roberts and company off the scoreboard completely, but I don't think you necessarily have to in this matchup either. So give me, again, a 3-2 type of finish, and I think that plays into the Cranes' favor for the program's 3rd state title in 6 years. So, all right, I'll bring it back to center here. We'll wrap things up. I've seen a lot of brackets and picks floating around on social media. Some of you have been quick to chirp my picks as I've posted them on Instagram as well, and I'll continue to share the rest of my brackets on social media, so be sure to follow me over there and connect with me on social to talk all divisions, all regions, all picks. Happy to hash all that out with you guys on social. So, playoff hockey, baby. Anything can happen. Look, it doesn't get any better than this. Boys, I'm telling you, win or lose, you are going to remember moments from the next 3 weeks for the rest of your lives. You've been warned. You know how important the next 3 weeks are. I'm telling you now. Now that you know the importance and what's at stake over the next 3 weeks, go own the moment, baby. Make that lifelong memory something worth remembering. So skate hard, have fun, and I will see you at the rink soon.